大家好，很欢迎来收看华尔街多媒体，我是王琳。今天是2010年4月21号星期三，我们今天请到了 Bobby Heller 从 MEB Options 来跟我们分享他对市场的想法。Bobby, it's very good to have you here. We had today JP Morgan out with numbers. Yesterday Goldman Sachs, they all bad estimates, and still the financial sector seems to be in a gloomy mood. Is this because of financial regulation and maybe a bank tax that IMF would like to come up with? And doesn't it mean that there will be a continue of bailouts?
Well, I think a lot of the movement in the market the last few days has been led by the banks. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs led it both ways. Led it down on Friday and back up again this week. It seems the banks are printing money. They're making it in their basement and making tons of it. They're beating estimates like crazy. But it's funny how you could say that it would be gloomy, but it does seem a little gloomy because a lot of people are looking at it and saying, yeah, okay, yeah, they're making money, so what? There seems to be a little less interest in maybe investing in these banks. I think part of the problem part of the reason for that is that these banks have been able to borrow money from the government or anybody else at basically 0%, little or no cost. And a lot of people now are thinking that the fact that they're making so much money is a signal for the Fed to start raising rates and others as well. And that, you know, the joyride may be over or at least slowing down. As far as the IMF and the bank tax, I haven't really had a chance to look at it too closely, but I think that it'll be hard to pass any tax that says this sector is doing very well and we're going to tax them because of it. Because we've had problems with that. We call windfall taxes here. They want to do it on oil companies, and we have real problems getting that done. So one thing I do see, though, that may not really be a tax is that our government and maybe the IMF as well will be looking for these banks to hold more cash in reserve, you know, to try to prevent some of the problems that occurred, 2 years ago when things started falling apart. I know the banks especially have a lot of cash on their hand now, and some people were saying they should start giving out dividends, start paying back investors. But I think most of the banks are holding off on that because they want to see where their reserve requirements are going to go. And it's, it makes sense. They have so much to do with the whole economy that you can't just let them take everything out. You need to hold back in case of some troublesome times.
Another industry that has gotten government aid was the auto industry. We saw GM coming out today with news that they might be able to repay $8.1 billion to the government that has lent them, during their bankruptcy and during their very bad times, $52 billion. Is this some kind of development we can see for the American auto industry because of the bad reputation Toyota has seen over the last few months, and has GM been able to profit from maybe the market share from Ford and Chrysler?
Well, that's a little bit complicated. It's not just one answer. I think the American autos and probably European autos have probably gained ground because of the troubles that Toyota's had. And we know they just had more problems in the last week, something with the Lexus. And it's the worst part of that story is that they seem to have known about it and not really done anything for a while. So we've gained ground there, but I think it's more than just that. I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think Toyota sold 1 million less and we sold 1 million more. I think, we look at the fact that General Motors is paying back, right, to both governments. But the U.S. government still owns a big piece of General Motors, like 60% or something like that. And there's talk that, they're really doing well, getting on their feet. It's making people excited about the auto industry in the United States again. Chrysler's also doing well. We see, and I read two stories. One's that they might still be losing a little money, but they're profitable. But in either case, how they say it is they're doing much better than they have been. And Ford stock has continued to do well recently, too. But it's the first time in a long time that people are starting to get a little excited again about U.S. automaking. And traditionally, for 50 or 60 years, it's been a big part of the American economy in terms of employment and, driving things like gasoline sales and hotels, everything. It really changed It was a big part of America growing up when I was a kid. So it's very exciting to see them do that. I think it's great news for the whole economy. It's just, it'll take some time to see where it goes. I think we heard that General Motors might be interested in building some new plants now, too, which is kind of amazing because in the last 10 years, all we heard is closing plants and cutting down. So I think that's another positive influence on this market. The interesting thing is, though, that most of the earnings we've been hearing the last few days are very positive and very strong, but the market hasn't really taken off, too aggressively. So I think we're kind of, in a comfortable position. We're with the Dow at 11,100, and maybe it's I don't know. The recovery seems to be a lot more even now than it was in the last few weeks. Seemed very uneven, up and down, but I think it's gaining ground and it's making a lot of people excited around here.
Another good news came from Apple. They really had profits of 90%. They surged 90%. Is this actually, they were saying it's because consumers are stocking up on iPhones and also MacBooks. Is this a sign that consumer spending is actually kind of improving, and is this also an overall improvement we could see for the American economy?
Apple, Steve Jobs, genius. I mean, I don't know when he thought of all these things. He may have all just put them in a box somewhere and waiting to put them out one at a time, but it's sort of like Santa Claus, that every couple months it comes out with another piece that fits the other piece. But Apple's profits were, what would he say, about doubled, and he's like a bank, the way he's printing money as well. But it is a sign that Americans are spending. I think it's also a sign that worldwide people are spending again. It's not the only report. We hear other people of American consumers, spending in all areas. So yes, that's a very positive sign, and I think it's also a sign that the consumers are starting to listen to the reports that they hear on TV or the radio and reading the articles, and that they're starting to believe that the recovery is gaining a little more strength as well. I would be slightly tepid about that because I think there are still a lot of people who are unemployed, but they seem to be spending money as well. An interesting thing, though, about Apple is that, I look at them as they sell more to some of the younger people than some of the older people. And people under the age of 25 seem to have a much higher unemployment rate. So the fact that they're still spending a lot of money, is pretty amazing. And, it'd be interesting to see how strong that can grow or how evenly it can go on.
Thank you very much for your time. 今天很高兴可以请到 Bobby Heller 从 MEB Options 来跟我们分享他对市场的想法。谢谢收看华尔街多媒体。